Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the College Football UK podcast. As always, I am your host, Fletch. Joining me this week are my two regulars. We have Sam and we have Gary. Lads, how are you?
Good,
Yeah,
good,
doing all
good.
right, man. Doing all right.
And also joining us this week as we preview the Big 12, we could find, well, so we couldn't find, not that we couldn't find anyone else. We wanted none other than the big man himself inside Carroll, returning since we did the program draft a few weeks ago. Si, it's lovely to have you back.
No, thanks for having me as always, Fletch. I really enjoyed it last time, so I couldn't say no again, could I? Especially for Big
Well,
12 talk.
well,
Always
you
good.
could, but I mean, we're glad you didn't.
We were worried that when you Sam, you're feeding back a little bit, I think.
There's nothing going on in my house.
Oh, so I can hear myself back and it lights up with you. Oh, sorry, thank you. So you could have said when you saw no Nick was here, we thought you would have just gone, screw it, I'm not. I was only here for Nick, but luckily you stayed.
Nick in his head. You see his head a lot when he's doing the news. It's fun.
When it zooms in and out of his head all the time.
I say today we're covering the Big 12. We've not really got much news this week. Obviously, most schools are coming back into fall camp. Fall camp starts yesterday, today for a few schools. I know Michigan started fall camp today. Are there any schools not back yet for fall camp? Does anyone know?
I assume everyone's almost back now. So if every Big 12 school,
I
I
haven't
think.
heard of anything not coming back yet. You'd have heard stories of this school's not back yet rather than everybody else is back.
Yeah. So I only had a couple of pieces of news. The Notre Dame USC rivalry returning. It has been played annually since 1946, with 2020 being the only exception because of COVID. Failed to reach an agreement beyond 2025, but they brought it back for 2030. One of college football's best rivalries, I think, as a whole. I think we all know one of the staple games every year, but unfortunately that won't be taking place now until 2030. The other bit was more just for us, and we don't often like to bring up obviously got like three-star recruits. We don't often try and bring them up as much as possible, but there is a very big three-star recruit in Steve Bentley Kimoju, the
Big Steve.
London-born defensive lineman, moved out to Coral Gables a year ago. He is reclassified, no longer joining in 2027. The Florida Gators, he will be joining them this year as he's reclassified, which is really exciting. And I think just look, from all of us at the AAW, we had a chat with him a few weeks ago. You can go check the episode out in the previous episodes of the podcast. Phenomenal, phenomenal young man, as level-headed as you can get, and even more for that age. Fantastic support network around him, and I'm sure very, very secretly we're all gonna be somewhat Gators fans whenever he steps out onto
No.
the field. Listen, I've got to. They've also got Emmanuel Oyedejo up from up north, from Manchester. So I am a secret Gators fan this year, I think.
It's fine for you. I can't do it myself, but I appreciate it.
Exciting head coach.
I'll be watching out for Big Steve, but I can't say I put my Gators fan hat on that for sure.
What were you saying there, Si? Sorry.
Saying John Sumnall in charge at Florida, exciting young head coach from Tulane. I think there's lots to like if you're a fan in Gainesville at the moment.
Yeah, we spoke about him a lot last year, and he really came onto our radar when Tulane beat Northwestern after Northwestern wouldn't let Tulane use the white jerseys as and he came out and he said, "You disrespect the city of New Orleans. That's what happens to you. You get an ass whooping." And he's such a likable person, John Sumrall. You can't help but root for him. Obviously, Gary can. I think we'll allow that. But as a whole, I don't think you can't help but root for him. I don't think.
I mean,
But
you can take you can't take the personality out. You can like coach, and as I say, I'll be looking out for Big Steve and seeing how he gets on. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to hate on the Gators.
Well, you're busy enough hating Mike Norvell, surely, aren't you, Gary, currently? So
Yeah,
that's,
got plenty of hate to go around, but yeah, he's taking a big chunk of it right now. So,
um, has anyone else seen any other pieces of news that are particularly newsworthy, worth
but
bringing
there's
up?
only one thing. There's only one thing. Akron Zips.
Oh, yes.
Akron Zips have
What are
come
the
up
Akron
with
Zips
a
doing, Gary?
blinder. The Akron Zips have come up with a blinder. They've basically offered to every season ticket holder the opportunity, the chance to enter into a draw to script basically the first opening drive of the new season. I think it's a great piece of marketing. It's fantastic, and I've already seen all over social people going, "I've just bought myself a season ticket to the Akron Zips just for the chance of it." So, A, it's probably filled the coffers. B, who knows, maybe a few more people will actually turn up and watch the Zips this year. But it's like you just know that if and whoever wins that competition, it's just going to be a drive of flea flickers, reverses, trick plays, left, right, centre, all up and down. I don't know. It seems gimmicky, but it also seems just brilliant from my point of view. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Well, to be honest, Gary, I think it's indicative of the way college football's going. I think we're going to talk about the Big 12 as a conference that they call themselves the Challenger Brand Conference, and they do very similar things across the board, don't they? Obviously, we've seen the international games, we've seen the way they position themselves market wide, and the teams they chase when they were realignment. But yeah, a great move from Akron, great fun. Sadly, it's not there for week one for them because they're away at Wake Forest. It's their first home game against Robert Morris. But I'll be tuning into a bit of action, I think, on week 2 to see how it goes.
Yeah.
I've got to say, my question to everyone, I'll go around the room. You get the opportunity to do this. You are selected, despite probably not having a season ticket, not aware of anyone in this room having an Akron Zips season ticket. What's the first play you're calling?
God, I don't know.
Halfback dive straight off the tackle. Everyone else is going to be expecting flea flickers and craziness because you're a fan doing it. You just run a straight up the guts.
I think a cheeky little screen pass for me. I think they're going to expect you to come out with a big passing play. So just let them attack you and just drop it over to. Hopefully, you've got some dynamic running back. I can't profess to know the depth chart of the Akron Zips, but if they do, just get the ball in his hands and let him go. Imagine if you scored a touchdown in one play. Your drive was over after one play. You'd be a legend.
Yeah,
especially if they didn't score another point for the rest of the game, you'd be like.
I think Ben Isaacs tweeted out. It was like, if I score a touchdown on that first drive, I'm not handing the headset back.
I think I saw something like that. I saw somebody post going, the similar sort of line. Imagine it, you script a drive, you score in 3 plays, and then the other, the main coaching takes over and they don't score for the rest of the game. Then you're like, whoa, that could be awkward.
What are you calling, Sam?
Neil on the first. No, I'm joking. That just 3 Neils done and dusted. No, I think it'd probably be something just again, probably one of the wild plays, something like a wildcat formation, just to kind of throw them off and then do a few fairly normal plays.
What about you, Fletch? What's your first go-to?
See, I wouldn't want to mess it up. I'd love to do something like a flea flicker, but I know I'd cave at the last minute, thinking I'm brave. I think I'm brave, then I'm going to cave. And I kind of stick to what I like to do on something like Madden or college football.
Speed option, right, isn't it?
It's the Marshawn Lynch quote. You run through a motherfucker's face over and over and over and over. We take a big guy, put him at running back, smash mouth football. I think because again, I'd love to do some fancy wild play, but I would chicken out. So I don't want them to throw an interception in the first play of the. We'll just run.
That's the thing, isn't it? Imagine that the pick six is your first game, your first sort of, as the side says, your first game at home, first play, and you throw a crazy pick six, and that's it.
You can average 4 yards a play. You extend as much time as you can being an offensive coordinator. Whereas you do one trick play straight for a touchdown, your offensive coordinator career has lasted 1 play. Granted, it was a 75-yard touchdown, but it's 1 play. I want that experience to last. Anyway,
but if you do get it from a 75-yard touchdown, then there's you might get signed on as the permanent offensive coordinator.
Might get the analyst job or something.
We've all had that dream though, haven't we? Or at least I did when I was a kid, and it was like one day someone's going to pluck you out of the stands. Manchester City are going to pluck me out of the stands. Need you to play striker. I'm going to score a hat trick, sign on for City, and then that's my football career. done. And it just kind of makes me think of that is like, and then halfway through the game, obviously the team hasn't got going after your touchdown that you scripted, and the head coach comes up like, nope, come back down. We need you back
Right.
down
Yeah,
here.
we need you back. What's the rest? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could happen. I mean, we've said it a couple of times on this podcast, the best job you can get in college in the world of football is assistant coaching job in college at the minute, because you can get paid a fortune, then you get fired, and then you sit on gardening leave for years, and you're made for life.
Yeah. Having said that, I think we're going to have a quick again. We're going to want to get our juices flowing again this week, so we're going to have another game of tenor balls. But because there's only three of you, should go a little bit quicker.
Did you warn Si about this?
No, I
Our
played it
esteemed
last
guest,
time and I was thrown into the fire on there last time. I did all right.
our esteemed guest, as is customary, you go first. Sam, you won last time, so you go last. So we're going to go Simon, Gary, Sam. This week's it is claimed national championships. Now, these are only teams that are in the FBS, but those national championships can spread across Division 2, Division 3, the FCS, but they have to currently be an FBS school. Starting with our esteemed guest.
All right, well, let's start off with a nice little,
Claimed.
yeah. So when you say claimed, just claimed or claimed and actually official ones, or
Claimed, because I like to wind people up
Claimed by the school.
this
yeah.
always
So
gets people hot. So
we're not just talking about the individual ones that are disputed over. We're talking about all the ones that aren't disputed and the claim ones as well.
yes.
Right. Okay. Give me North Dakota State to start off with. Let's see how many FCS things they've won.
North Dakota State are not in the top
Ooh.
25 of this one, unfortunately.
They won a
Gary.
load. So just to get some points on the board, I will go with Ohio State.
Ohio State, they are joint sixth with 9. Sam,
We'll go Alabama.
Alabama are first with 18 claimed national championships.
What do the curveball is? The claims. There's some team out there claiming all kinds of things they don't deserve. Let's go Notre Dame.
Notre Dame are second with 13 claimed national championships.
Well, go on then. I'll give you your big blue.
Michigan are third with 12 claimed national championships. I have a good
think
idea.
I'm with Si. There's going to be like something random in here, isn't there? That's because of the claimed thing.
Go on then. We'll throw Texas out there.
Texas are joint 20th.
Wow.
With 4 claimed national championships. So not in the top 25. Not in the top 10, sorry. Si, back to you.
This is intriguing, this, isn't it? Claimed. What about, USC?
USC are 4th with 11.
They seem like this kind of team will just claim anything, won't they?
Gary?
Georgia must have won enough.
Georgia are joint 20th with Texas with 4 claimed national championships.
Oh, see, there's that claimed thing again, right? It's not the total. I see where you're going. I'm getting a bit more right.
If it means you don't Google, this is according to Windowpedia.
To what?
Back to Sam.
LSU.
I just said
LSU
that, didn't he?
joint 13th.
Oh,
So
What number
no.
were Ohio State on again? Was it 6 or 8?
Ohio State were joint 6th.
joint
with
six.
9
How many?
9.
9 claimed. Si?
Who likes to claim? Who's got inferiority complex? Auburn. How about Auburn?
Auburn are joint 6th with 9.
Oh,
Over to Gary.
the Trojans?
USC. That's
Yeah.
already been guessed.
Has it? Sorry,
Yeah.
I wasn't.
That was what Si
Okay.
said, and I think you asked about LSU. Si said USC.
Is that what I was? Okay. Then.
Unless I've misheard, then Si's just being
No,
polite. Like,
no,
I'll go
no. I
away with
didn't
it.
say USC.
Okay.
Fair enough. But then I will go with that's claimed. Clemson?
Clemson, no, they have 3 claimed national championships.
Nebraska.
Nebraska, no, again, they're joint 13th with 5.
Ooh,
I thought you pulled a good one there, Sam, to be fair to you.
Yeah.
Which teams won?
I like the thought process because there's those periods when Nebraska were really, really good. But unfortunately, not for long enough.
Have to be FBS now.
What about Gary Seminoles?
Gary Seminoles are not on the list.
No, they're not. I assume they'd have the no class and have claimed loads.
It's more likely to be the orange mob across the swamp, to be honest. What about Rutgers?
Rutgers, no.
Been
Sam?
around for a long time. They must
Tennessee.
Tennessee are joint 10th.
Oh, jointed with
6 claimed national championships. I will add it's essentially 12 teams because 3 are joint 10th.
This is tricky. What about Penn State?
No, Penn State are joint with Georgia and Texas on 4 claimed national championships.
Now we're getting
Penn
the weeds
State's got to
here.
be Pitt. It's got to be Pitt then, isn't it? It's got to be Pitt if it's not Penn State.
Pitt are 5th with 10 claimed national championships.
That's a good shout, Gary.
Well, as soon as you said Penn State, we had that conversation last week about Penn State, Pitt.
Yeah, Pitt was going to be my next shout.
Sam?
We haven't mentioned them, and they've been on previous lists, so we'll go with Oklahoma.
Oklahoma are joint 8th with 7.
Joint 10th and joint 8th. Oh,
You've had 6 rounds so far. It's currently on Si 3, Gary 3, Sam 3. So 9 out of 12 are ticked off. I'll give you a clue. 2 of them are in the Big Ten, and 1 of them is in the group of 5, 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and guess this group of 5 or 6 one. But I don't think. See, I know this team won them back in the day, but I don't think they won anything at the FCS level. So what about Tulane?
Not Tulane, no. Gary?
the other Michigan.
Central,
Michigan
Eastern.
State. Sorry, I should have realised there's 15 other ones. Michigan
Eastern,
State.
yes, they are joint 10th
Are they?
with 6. So,
6. Joint 6.
so 1 Big Ten, 1 group of 5.
Let's go for. I don't know why this has popped in my head, but I'm just going to go for Kennesaw State, just because it'd be funny if it was them.
It is
The
not
Mighty
Kennesaw
Owls.
State. Unfortunately, they haven't been going long enough, I think, to have claimed enough national championships.
That's the thing, isn't it? You're thinking long term now. You've got to think.
Go back to Si.
Big Ten. What about Iowa?
Not Iowa. Iowa are on the list in joint 13th.
God, that's 3 times at Call the 13th, isn't it?
They're obviously given the actual number of claimed to national championships is like 10th has 3 different teams, 13th has like 7 different teams, 20th is claimed by 4 different teams. So there's a lot of closeness there.
Oh, so we're missing
one Big Ten and one Group of 6.
8th and joint 10th. So one with 7, one with 6.
Washington State?
No, not Washington State. No.
Is it Washington by any chance?
It is not Washington.
I thought I'd say you
as
up
soon
there.
as he said Washington State, I thought,
not Washington State. It was like he left it there, didn't he? It was like, oh, you bugger.
Right, so I'll give you one more clue, given how many rounds we've gone through. Sam, you were in the right conference for the G5 team.
I've forgotten who I said.
Kennesaw State.
Kennesaw State, okay.
You were in the right conference, and none of their championships are in the FBS, put it that way.
Is it my go to guess now?
Yeah.
What about Jacksonville State?
Not Jacksonville State, no. Gary?
Nebraska, didn't you say? Have to be FBS now, right?
Yeah.
What was that? All those Harvard and Yale, all those rubbish ones.
The championships don't have to have come in the FBS, but they at least have to be an FBS team right now.
Budgedoodle, I meant the Minnesota.
Minnesota. They are joint 8th with 7.
That's
but
impressive.
7 of those are in like way back. Yeah.
So Gary, you've officially won because you got 5. Sam and Sire on 3 each.
Who can find that last? So the last one is the joint 10th one with
joint 10th. And as we've already said, they're in Conference USA, and none of their championships have come in the FBS level.
Difficult this.
Delaware.
Well done, Sam.
Hey, good shout.
Good shout, Sam.
If anyone was wondering, I was looking on my NCAA conference thing that I have on my phone, which has a list of all the teams, and I was going through thinking, which one could it be?
I was trying to. I was like, who's in Kusa without looking it up? It's just like
all of these so far have been supplied via Windsopedia.com. So if you have issue with any of the stats,
take it up.
Not talk to me. Take it up with them. But it's a fun. I do recommend, by the way, if you don't know it, please use it.
They certainly get the brain thing. They certainly get the juices flowing in the brain, don't they? When you start.
And as again, since it's claimed national, and I like just reminding people they're claimed national championships because it gets some people a bit hot. I think.
Just out of interest, what does it mean by claimed national champions?
So, I say back in times where you didn't have a national champion in the sense of like there's not a national championship game. Schools would claim that they were the national champion, essentially, or be declared. So it could be via the AP poll or via certain polls that they would then say, because they finished number 1 at the end of the season, we are the national champion that year.
Yeah, there was a period, wasn't there, where you could be AP poll champion and the other poll. There was a period where there were 2 different polls, wasn't there?
Yeah.
It's basically teams operating in the grey. They might have gone undefeated, but we saw UCF tongue-in-cheek do it a few years ago, didn't we, when Scott Frost was in the first time.
Yeah.
They went undefeated, didn't they? But didn't get invited to the dance. And I think they beat Auburn in the bowl game. I think they beat Auburn and claimed themselves as national champions.
Find
talk
that
teams
just a
that
very
go
funny
undefeated
concept
and
that
don't
they
get
can just
invited.
claim, like the claiming of a national championship.
Yeah.
And the
Um,
concept of it quite funny.
to hark back to, so I subscribe to the Sickos Committee kind of Patreon, so I get the side pod that they do, and one of them was on claimed national championships and certain ones that are disputed, put it that way. And I think, if I can remember rightly, I think it was one of the schools. I can't remember the school and I can't remember the year, but they'd essentially cited something like People magazine as one of their claimed national championships, because People magazine had said that they were the best team in the country, kind of put them
It's
at
like an
number one in
Auburn
their
thing to me.
poll that they'd ran on the side of it. It was either People magazine or something ridiculous. But if Gardeners Weekly had, for whatever reason, done an article that said you were the best team in the country that year, some schools would say, go ahead and go, I'm claiming that, we're taking that, we were the national champions that year.
Yeah.
So there are years where there were three
I
national
can't
champions.
imagine any team that plays in blue and gold would do anything as low as that coming out of South Bay. I'm only
But
throwing shade at Nick because he's not here.
there are years, like especially in the early 30s, where there are 3 or 4 national champions that year, according to certain schools. So it's quite funny. Anyway, on to the Big 12, which is what we're here to discuss, and what we're here for is the 2026 Big 12 season. We can't do that though without nodding back to the 2025 season really, really quickly. Texas Tech were the winners after defeating BYU in the national championship game. No, they did not. In the conference championship game, let me get my stats back up. I've turned off that tab. It's very silly. Playoff appearances. Well, Texas Tech with the playoff appearance for the Big 12. They lost 23-0 to Oregon. Oregon. The Big 12 went 4-3 in bowl games at the end of the year, and in the polls, in the college football playoff poll, 5 Big 12 teams made it in. That'd be Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, Arizona, and Houston. And in the AP and the UK and Ireland college football media polls, only 4 teams made it in.
The one that really counts.
Yes. Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and Arizona all made it in. Speaking of that, are we starting up the UK and Ireland college football media preseason poll soon?
This week.
This week.
It's got to be done.
You'll get the
poll. The official SEC media poll came out, didn't it, this week?
SEC media poll.
Is that because how many SEC teams are in it? 17, 18 or
there's 17 SEC and Big Ten teams in the 25 preseason poll.
And Clemson got shoehorned in there to make LSU for the first week. Yeah.
But the Big 12 do well. They have 4 teams in there, which is indicative of how strong they finished last year. And as you alluded to, Fletcher, they did well in the ball games, but I don't know how much water that carries nowadays, but they always do well in the ball games, the Big 12. And interestingly enough, do well in inter-conference play as well.
Yes. I would say some of those bowl wins came against... I'll just find them here. Georgia Tech, LSU, USC, and Nebraska.
There you go. Big Ten SEC.
Yeah, exactly. And as most people tend to look at college football, I guess now is you got the Big Ten and the SEC. Behind that is the ACC and the Big 12, and then it's the G5, G6.
Appreciate you putting us in with the Big 12.
Three of those wins against Big Ten and SEC is not bad going at all.
Caveated, but of course LSU being slightly.
Also caveated with the playoff game against Oregon that I'm not counting in this.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But obviously that's how the end of last season went. As we go into the off season, the first place to look at is normally 4 head coaches are no longer with their Big 12 teams. Iowa State's Matt Campbell took the job at Penn State. He's replaced by Jimmy Rogers of previously of Washington State. Excuse me, Kansas State. Kansas State's Chris Kleiman retired at the end of the season. So that's both head coaches who were in Dublin last year. Will not be taken.
Again.
Yep. Colin Klein, former Texas A&M offensive coordinator, will take over. Oklahoma State's Mike Gundy was fired after 3 games last season after a terrible start, replaced by Eric Morris of North Texas head coach. And Utah's Kyle Whittingham was on the verge of retiring before getting the single greatest upgrade anyone could get in the history of college football by accepting the job at Michigan Wolverines. He was replaced by Morgan Scalley, who was the Utah defensive coordinator. So just to get started on these bits, obviously, I think the first place for me to start is Mike Gundy has spent 40 of his last 45 years at Oklahoma State. Si, how weird is it going to be to go into a Big 12 season without Mike Gundy?
Well, I mean, Mike Gundy has been basically Stillwater. You cut him in half, it's like a stick of rock, isn't he? He's been something that's synonymous with Big 12 football for God knows how long. Very unique character. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the rants, the raves that we see frequently. He mellowed a bit as he got older, but he also went a bit right wing as he got older as well. So it was a tricky character. You couldn't help but like him, but there was definitely some things you glad he wasn't your part of him.
Sometimes you were like, yeah, kind of wince when he opened his mouth sometimes, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no doubt. I mean, like the last 2 years are taking the shine off what he's done at Oklahoma State, because really the Pokes are, if all being fair, Barry Sanders notwithstanding, a backwater team. You know, they're a small team really in the grand scheme of things, but he's made them a perennial, Power 4 conference team that competed year in year out in the Big 12 for 2 decades, which is incredible. Epic mullet. I don't think that shouldn't be we shouldn't gloss over that. We're going to miss that. But I think the more weird thing is just the size of the change in Oklahoma State this season. Obviously, like Mike Gundy's way of football was quite defined, but more importantly, that the new head coach coming in, he's brought basically the whole of North Texas with him. So there's a lot of change at Oklahoma State, and they might go from bad to good pretty quick.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say. I'm pretty sure most of us have, but we've got a lot to say on the new Oklahoma State edition, some of which we spoke about last week with Ollie. Week before with Ollie Hodgkinson. Going on to, I want to say Matt Campbell. I'm going to throw it out to the room for Matt Campbell. Obviously did a fantastic job at Iowa State, gets a job at Penn State, but then they bring in Jimmy Rogers, who's kind of somewhat steadied the ship throughout the mucky waters of the way the Pac 1 to whatever number it was called for a little while had gone. He now comes over to the Big 12 in what's seen as, could it be seen right now as a bit of a promotion? Given the Pac 12 no longer has its true kind of Power 5 status anymore.
It is a step up from whatever, as you say, the Pacific Northwest Pac conference was, whatever, and what it has become now, the All-State Intercontinental, Interstate Championship. Going into the Big 12 is still going to be a step up. It is still a promotion for them. It is, a conference that is much more competitive across the board. I think more of the games have been competitive versus some of those other ones. So it has to be a step up. There's no reason. It's certainly not sideways. There's definitely an upward trajectory for that coaching sort of move.
I think it's interesting because he's kind of had a very natural progression up the board. Obviously, being at South Dakota State before that for 2 years, getting them obviously, in a great position there, winning the FCS over there before. Obviously, they moved on to Washington State, and he didn't do a bad job at Washington State. Was it 6-6 he finished in the end? So again, it's whether he can keep the progression going and keep the teams moving in the right direction. I think it's going to be. I mean, we'll come on to how the Big 12 is going to play out, but I think this could be a real struggle for him first year. just because.
Especially they're not bringing. There's nobody coming back though, is there? They've got.
Well, this is it. You look at the team itself. There's a lot of issues with it, but again, it's something that I think is they are giving him the job to build something, and I think it's just going to take a bit of time. But
yeah, I don't
I mean,
2-season job, is it?
I think that and I know we'll come on to the others. I just think it's interesting that we're going to have there's a nice defined split between the four of two never head coached teams, two brand new, completely brand new head coaches versus two relatively seasoned head coaches coming into the Big 12. And I think that could be interesting to see how those two halves play out as a whole. But yeah, I'm sure we'll come on to talk about the other two in a minute.
Yeah, honestly, well, my next question I think to throw out to the room is you've got the two relatively new head coach, but there's also two here of these jobs which have been occupied for a long time by the same person. Obviously, Mike Gundy, we've just mentioned him, but going over to Carl Whittingham, whom, look, just remind everyone one more time, don't get a bigger upgrade in football than getting to head coach Michigan football. But it's a long. Carl Whittingham has been there a long time. I'm sure we'll get into it in the Big Ten. I've got lots of feelings about his quotes about Ohio State and the rivalry there. Obviously, good friends of Urban Meyer, very respectful of the program over in Ohio, but never difficult to replace someone for a long. Then you get Mully, who's also been there since 2007, and now. I'm just one to you. How for a pro to of someone who's been in.
Didn't hear a word of that. You were like a robot.
It wasn't just me. His whole network just died.
Your whole sound's gone. Sorry, Fletcher. I was hoping you were asking me a question.
Yeah, no, I was. Sorry, is that better?
Yeah.
So I was going to say. So as far as something like Utah goes, obviously you have a head coach like Carl Whittingham for as long as you do. Morgan Scalley's been in that building since 2007. How good is it for a program like Utah to be able to build off a lot of that continuity and have someone that the players are already very familiar with, someone who's already very familiar with the program, so isn't probably going to change up a lot of different things?
Yeah, I think it's. I think it would have been a whole lot nicer if Carl Whittingham had rode off into the sunset. But I think the biggest problem is that he's gone now to Michigan and taken talent. Aside from that, yeah, the transition probably should be seamless. Morgan Scalley's someone they've thought of highly for a long time in that room. They've basically been waiting for Whittingham to tell them when he's done. It was supposed to be last year, but Whittingham said, "I want one more year." They allowed it, and they tried to do the same again this year, and it didn't work. So, I mean, Utah fans will expect a challenge. They'll expect 8-9 wins this year minimum. I think it's doable. I think Morgan Scalley has probably got, out of all the new head coaches, he's probably the most comfiest in his seat as we speak. I think that makes total sense for him. He's very talented. Utah's a great football team. A big school that, that potentially the Big Ten might be looking at in future if the College Sports Act allows it. Who knows? I think he's got it. I think they're in a strong position, but it would have been stronger could he have kept some talent in Salt Lake City.
I think it's interesting because he is literally the definition of a local boy. He grew up in Salt Lake City. He played there as a defensive back, I believe, or maybe it was a linebacker. I can't remember. And then pretty much from 2001, 2004, he was playing there. Left for 3 years and then joined as a graduate assistant at Utah and spent his whole life there. So he is I suppose what you would maybe class as the embodiment of someone from Utah in terms of that university and that football team. That football program. So I think, and it is worth mentioning. I know it was, again, it's only the Las Vegas bowl game, but he did go. He is currently 1-0 as a head coach because he was the one he took charge of that bowl game and beat Nebraska. So technically, he is a 1-0 head coach, which obviously is good. But yeah, losing a lot of talent to Michigan and to other places as well is something it's worth keeping an eye on. I don't think they're going to be as strong as they once were, but again, they had relatively okay portals and recruitment, which again we'll come on to in a bit.
Yeah. I think it's generally a good place. My one more question is similar to the previous one in continuity of someone who's been there before. So Colin Klein was last year, and I think the year before, the Texas A&M offensive coordinator. So you would think this is a brand new addition. No, he was the Kansas State quarterbacks coach from 2017 to 21. Then he was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach from 22 to 23. Then left to go to Texas A&M. So fortunately, I think for Kansas State, again, you bring someone in who knows the building, who knows the program, who understands what it's like to build a program at Kansas State. And you are also, unlike many of the other programs, Kyle Whittingham goes to Michigan, Matt Campbell goes to Penn State, Mike Gundy was obviously fired. Chris Kleiman goes out on his own terms. He retires. So you aren't losing a load of talent like Iowa State have done, or Utah have done in particular, going to the Big Ten and following the head coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who knows the program, how good is that as well for that kind of continuity? And how is that going to be? What's the Kansas job like? As particularly as interesting as it was, we saw them in Dublin last year, had a bit of a disappointing season. How do you see that? What's the biggest thing that Colin Klein will have to overcome walking into that building, or had to overcome in December walking into the building?
Good question. I mean, you was the quarterback there as well. He played quarterback at Kansas State too, so he's ultra familiar with this program. It was obviously a job that he coveted. Kansas State probably will have that continuity as well. I think fixing Avery Johnson, if he needs fixing, I think he did some good work with Marcel Reed at A&M. So I think that bodes well. I think Kansas State fans are quite pleased with the guy they've got. But yeah, Avery Johnson was hit and miss last year. When I went out to Kansas, I went out and watched him against Kansas, and he threw the air on the ground. He tore him apart. But then we were all in Dublin last year and saw him lay an egg against Iowa State. So much so that his brother and his dad got in a fight outside. It was so bad. I would argue that's his biggest thing, maximising the talent as Avery Johnson. Because 12 months ago, we were sort of sat around thinking that he might be the quarterback in the Big 12, and this year no one's really talking about him in a conference where big names of quarterbacks, Sam Levitt, Rocco Becht, have departed, and they've just added other people, and he's still not really considered.
You skimmed over that other big name quarterback who's departed.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
I think with Kansas State, it's an interesting one, as you say, Si. He's probably been, I don't want to say he's been primed for the job, maybe been playing there, doing the offensive coordinator. Maybe it was almost like, give me 2 more years, go and get a bit more experience somewhere else and come back, because, you're shoehorned in and we've already got you penciled in for when I do hang up my headset. So I think there's that level of it. So I don't think he's coming into not a fresh slate of stuff, but he's certainly not coming into any sort of pressure to perform. And I think he's come in at a great year as well. I think there's a sneaky chance if Avery Johnson could be a lot more consistent, and there's a big if. They've got a great running back, got a schedule that lines up for them to actually be in and around the mix, because they avoid the big guys. They avoid BYU, they avoid Texas Tech. So, they've got a chance of actually being a little bit, maybe the Kansas State that we thought they would be last year, more chance this year with their schedule lining up the way it does. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah. I've never made it anything other than I rated Avery Johnson. I think when we talked about him 2 years ago on the pod, I think he was one of the ones that I said to watch out for. And he did have a good rookie year, and then obviously that last year was relatively poor. But I think if you're going to fix that Kansas State team, you need to fix Avery Johnson and getting him throwing the ball again and doing what he does best. And who better to do that than a former Kansas State quarterback? And I think, like I say, he did very good work with Marcel Reed. So I think that's sort of your big starting point, is getting him going. And once he gets going, that team could do well.
Yeah.
And I kind of have them as an outsider, very, very, very outsider, but an outsider.
Yeah, I think we've alluded to it, and I don't want to beat around the bush much more on it. We'll get on to, I think the more interesting part here is not the recruitment, sorry, the transfer portal and who's coming.
Sorry, Fletch. Can I just say before
Go
we
on.
jump away from the head coaches, a couple of interesting points for me was what BYU keeping the head coach status. Kalani Sitake obviously very
Yes.
much coveted by Penn State. I think that's a huge get. That's probably better than any head coach hire. And also Gus Malzahn also retired last year at the end of last year, didn't he? With the UCF and Scott Frost is coming.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an interesting one because obviously what Scott Frost did at UCF and what he didn't do at Nebraska, which makes it quite interesting.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know why he's managed to skip through my.
Well, Gus Malzahn, to be fair, he's going to push for Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame recognition with what he did at Auburn.
Yeah.
Great offensive, innovative mind. Been around a long, long time. Well respected in circles. So UCF, obviously, quite a young program, fledgling program in the Big 12. Really, how they adapt now, it could be sick. They could have some problems themselves this year.
Yeah. Are we all happy to move on to transfer portal?
I just wanted to ask a quick question on head coaches, and this is more the other side of it. And I suppose this might be more, directed to Si, given the fact that this has got his conference. But is there anyone for you that you kind of think is really on the hot seat this year? Like, I'm obviously one that I was looking at, and I'm kind of interested to see how it plays out. Is obviously at Colorado is Deion Sanders. I wonder if he's, because again, obviously they brought him in to make a big thing about him, and I don't know if is he potentially on the hot seat.
Right. I'm gonna ask you to put a pin in. Can I ask you to put a pin in that question, please? When we get on to the actual 2026 season, this would be kind of perfect for in that conversation. And that's a topic that I've got within a wider topic I've got within that. So I think is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Cheers. So I would say going onto the transfer portal, you mentioned quarterbacks. To talk about some of the quarterbacks that have come in, all gone out of the conference. I mentioned Sam Levitt. He's gone to LSU. We've mentioned, but we haven't outright mentioned yet Baylor going and getting DJ Lagway, which is a fantastic get. Texas Tech went and got some guy in the transfer portal. Obviously he's all my bets are on him being fantastic this year. There's been some really, really good transfer portal moves in terms of quarterback. Now, how for any of those quarterback transfer, and as for with some of those quarterback transfers, how much does losing Sam Levitt really take away from Arizona State? He was one of the last probably major pieces from that offense of going to the playoffs a couple of years ago, under Kenny Dillingham in his first year in the Big 12 when they won the Big 12. Then you've got coming into Baylor, you've got someone like DJ Lagway comes over from Florida. That's a huge addition.
It's a big name.
Yeah. Well, what you how it is. What do you think of the transfer portal as a whole, but with some of these transfers coming in? And I'm also going to throw out the name Drew Mestermaker as well, if anyone would like to entertain me on that one.
I think probably the big advantage for Drew Mestmaker is the fact that he is following his head coach to where is it? He's gone. Oklahoma State. Which is obviously again it kind of builds that continuity. I think he was a rookie at North Texas last year, so it's kind of like a secondary sort of continuity thing. I do believe that they've also brought over the running back as well. I think was it or was it? Yeah, they brought over
Caleb.
the running back,
Caleb's come as well. Yeah,
which again was a big move into the division, into the conference. Sorry. I do think that's going to obviously massively help because it just having so many players that are familiar with the style of play. Yes, it is a step up, but North Texas were 12-2 last year. So it is going to be a step up, but then they're a year older, and it's just a natural progression up the I suppose the pyramid. I suppose.
My question, my transfer one that intrigues me, and looking at the size sweatshirt there.
Hmm.
It's the guy who's stepping up Harvard, going from Harvard to TCU. How's that step up gonna be for Jaden Craig in there? That seems more of a step somehow from the one you've just mentioned there, Sam. That intrigues me. It's a brave move, but is it something that's going to either backfire on them, or is it maybe genius?
Well, it's real. What I would say about TCU is that there's going to be some change this year. I think it's quite a good year to get to see him in Dublin for us guys because there's a lot of change on offense. Particularly, they brought in Gordon Samis, an offensive coordinator, he's bringing in more of a pro style offense. He was at UConn last year, who did quite well on offense. Really, to be fair to them, Jaden Craig coming from Harvard, I think he had something like 5,300 yards, 48 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, an unknown, but an exciting unknown if you're a fan of the Big 12 and the kind of like explosive offense that we get to watch week in, week out. So yeah, that's an intriguing one. My personal one, I quite like JC French. He's quite interesting coming in from Georgia Southern at Cincinnati because obviously they lost Brendan Salisbury. Everyone's forgot that they've moved on from Brendan. And Cincinnati well out of their expectations because I'm not a big fan of Scott Satterfield in general as a head coach, but they did well last year. They were flirting with top 25 finish, weren't they?
Yes,
a time or two.
Yeah, they were definitely towards the end of the season. They were in and thereabouts, weren't they?
But some of these quarterback moves are, well, maybe not some of them, but certainly the DJ Lightweight one. That Baylor looked out there really with their Catholic ties and how obviously DJ Leg was family playing for Baylor back in the past. But there's no quarterback tied to the success of the head coach tied to the success of their quarterback quite like Dave Aranda is in Baylor. So there's a lot of pressure on Legway to hit the ground running there. I don't think Baylor are a roster equipped to handle that kind of pressure, which makes it really interesting. And of course, I think we're all talking about the quarterbacks, and of course, the big name was Brendan Salisbury and how that panned out at Texas Tech. But they've or didn't, yeah. To be fair to them, but despite that setback, they've still got Will Hammond, who's an experienced quarterback, and they've won with last year, and they've brought a ton of talent in around him. Malcolm Simmons, the wide receiver from Auburn, and particularly intrigued to watch Trey White, the edge from San Diego State as well. So Texas Tech dominated the transport. One of the team that did well was Arizona State, despite the loss of Sam Levitt. Really, they replaced him with Cutter Bowley, who was kind of a backup at Kentucky. He was only a freshman last year, so it's still a bit of unknown about him, but he was a highly prized recruit when he came out. And obviously, I think I've got quite a good trust in Cal. He's having Kenny Dillingham, and now he'll be able to put that guy in a position to succeed. So yeah, a lot of movement around. You get some schools like BYU returned third most talent production in the country this year. So sometimes you win by not doing as much in the portal and recruiting, don't you? Really. Yeah. Other teams, Oklahoma State are going to get better because they did so much in the portal, and Iowa State are going to prop up the conference because they got decimated. And so it really is. I mean, whichever way you look at it, there's winners and losers regardless of how they attack the portal this year.
Yeah, and do you know what? As you say that, sometimes it's not what you do. But sometimes it's what you don't. I'm a child. I don't care. And you've mentioned obviously BYU keeping and them retaining the head coach. I think one of the big things there is his name was flirted around a lot at the end of last season in Kenny Dillingham for, in particular, one job, and I don't want to talk about it. I would have been really, really excited to see him take on a particular kind of job at in the Big Ten. We absolutely love him here. Absolutely love Kenny Dillingham and everything that he's put together at Arizona State, and to be able to not just keep the talent that they have and retain the talent that they have, obviously losing Sam Levitt, but also to be able to keep Kenny Dillingham in the building has been a huge thing for them. No matter how temp through and through he is, sometimes some across and a lot of money for you and your entire family to go wherever on earth you want to go. But I want to run back on Drew Mestamaker a little bit. Yeah, it brings back Caleb Hawkins, just shy of 1,500 yards last year and 25 touchdowns for North Texas. He also brings in Wyatt Young, who was the leading receiver last year and leading receiving yards and leading receiving touchdowns last year for North Texas. In the best scoring offense, best offensive numbers in the entire FBS last year. So Drew Mestermaker gets his best running back and he gets his best wide receiver and his head coach now at Oklahoma State. That is a huge haul for Rick Morris and Oklahoma State. And like you say, that's where I think it's not just bringing the running back, it's you've got Wyatt Young there as well. So I'm really excited to see what Oklahoma State can do this year.
The only thing those three have downgraded in really is the uniforms, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah.
Gone from those lovely North Texas ones to the absolute atrocity.
Dire it's horrible in the Oklahoma State.
That being said, I quite like a cool stadium, to be fair. So it's going to be exciting. I quite like UCF getting Alonzo Barnett from JMU. You know, there's some sneaky ones out there. I think West Virginia will be good this year. Rich Rod, second year, all he does is win. He's beefed up his offensive line. He went and got Cam Cook from Jacksonville State. Cam Cook might be MVP for the Big 12 this year. So wherever you're looking, there's some really good additions, especially on offense in this conference.
Yeah. Well, obviously going on to, if you look at sheer numbers of people brought in, obviously Oklahoma State outright, no one comes really very close. And then Iowa State, following them with 34 commits in the transfer portal, was West Virginia. West Virginia, I believe, also come, I think, the first. Let me just double check. In the Big 12, in number of commits this year, in terms of recruitment, with 50. And no one else is particularly that close.
50 recruits.
Depending on who says what, it's
literally
49 or 50. But that's 50 recruits, recruit commitments, and 34 transfer portal commitments.
It's quite incredible. That's the Rich Rod effect for you, Fletch. That is, this is a man who obviously he's done it before at West Virginia. They were particularly good. You'll remember the good old days of West Virginia, the Pat Whites, was Geno Smith. He was there, and they were dangerous. And I think that hasn't been forgotten in Morgantown. I think if when he came back, people want to play for Rich Rod. They do. It's that simple. So he's got the ability to bring people in. 85, I don't know how that's going to work out, but he might have judged this new modern day of college football.
Tavon Austin.
Yes,
Tavon Austin.
Tavon, yes. A lot of player. I think he'll be in the College Football Hall of Fame as well.
Absolutely. As well, though, as far as recruitment goes, Sam, you've alluded to this before, to bringing players in. One thing that I think shocked a lot of the world was there's a 5-star quarterback. One of the top recruits in the entire nation went to the Big 12 in Houston earlier, and will be playing for them this year. I believe he's second on the depth chart. But it's Keyshawn Henderson. He's 5-star out of, I cannot remember where he's out of. I did not put that much information about him on my sheet. But for a university like Houston to be able to pull in that kind of level of talent, particularly in recruitment, especially when we look at the era of NIL and a lot of the problems I think that a lot of the schools run into against Big Ten and SEC schools, how big a pull is that? Not just for Houston, but for the conference as a whole to really flex some of its power, because there are some of the schools in the Big 12 have some big power, particularly to spend in NIL.
Yeah, I mean, it's big for them, and I think to add to they had 65% of starters returning, 71% on offense, so it's to add then someone who is potentially going to be, we're talking about sort of I think he was number one nationally and number one state, and he was number one across the board, wasn't he? So, and I think it's to say where I think he was linked with a number of, I think was it maybe Ohio State? I think he was even linked with, and out of nowhere, Houston obviously offered him a very, very good deal there, and obviously probably just said to him, you're probably going to be the starter for every single year, and I think it's a solid basis for Houston to move forward with, and putting him at second is interesting because again, it's not like what we saw at Michigan where you you threw Bryce Underwood straight in as the starting quarterback and playing him first year. This guy, by the sounds of it, I mean, yes, he's second on the depth, but maybe might, if he doesn't play, it's a year of learning first, which I think is always best for those, for rookies essentially, or freshmen in this case. But yeah, it's massive for I think it's massive for the Big 12 more as well as it is just for Houston, because it shows that they can still compete with the likes of the Big 10 and SEC, where for the most part have dominated, especially from a nil perspective.
Yeah.
But to take the number one guy, and not only just like the number one prospect, but the number one quarterback, and obviously with being such an important position, to take him there is a massive pull and a massive coup, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, they're a very ambitious program, Houston. A lot of people's dark horses in the Big 12 this year. Obviously, did quite well last year. Connor Wegman will start this year for Houston. He played really well last year. He'll be their guy. The rookie obviously will sit. You might see some of the field, might not. Who knows? But the only concern Houston will have is whether they can keep him at the end of the season, or will he jump into the portal? Again, a lot of that depends on the College Sport Act and whether or not the people can be as fluid and move as much as we have seen the last 2 or 3 years. But yeah, Houston are right up there. Willie Fritz is one of the best coaches in the game. Did a great job at Tulane. We all remember how far he took Tulane, and they beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. The Houston are a serious team in this conference this season. And you're right, it is a good indicator for the Big 12 and how they can compete. But I think whilst I'm not wild about how money dictates college football more than ever now, the fact of the matter is that you don't need prestige and history and facilities anymore to match the Big 10 and the SEC. If the Big 12 all of a sudden got 3 more programs who could do what Texas Tech have done and throw money at it, then you've got 4 teams you can within a decade will be able to compete for a national championship. You can just buy. You can just buy your way into the fight now, as long as you're in a Power 4 conference. And Houston look like they're going to try and do the same as Texas Tech have done. And it only takes 2 or 3 more teams in the Big 12 to do that, and all of a sudden they'll be held in the same esteem in this current climate of college football as the Big 10 and the SEC, even though they do not have that kind of prestige about them the same as those 2 other conferences do.
Traditional chips or whatever else. But yeah, as you say, if you've got deep pockets and
BYU
are willing to,
BYU, you've got big money, so that's 3 right there without even blinking. Yeah, obviously we don't know about Colorado if the ambition's there still. There's Arizona State's a team that we've seen them get to the playoffs already. This is a conference that can do it. They're not far away at all. It's a very intriguing conference.
I mean, you talked about Texas Tech there, and they spent just over $3.5 million on nil deals for 4 players. And obviously Malcolm Simmons out of Auburn, at the edge out of Miami, another D lineman, another linebacker. I mean, these are all massive moves for players that before were at 2 of which were at probably lower teams. But I think Malcolm Simmons was an interesting one, because did I read somewhere, obviously with him being at Auburn, he was competing with Cam Coleman, but he'd had his stats, if you look at them per game, actually outshone Cam Coleman. And obviously we're talking about Cam Coleman being the number 1 wide receiver out of the transfer portal. And this guy goes to Texas Tech, and his stats are actually working out better than Cam Coleman's. And it's this guy could actually be a real threat for Texas Tech this year.
Yeah, Texas Tech will be a player in any market they want to be. And obviously, it's good to see the Big 12 of a team that can do that. I will put the caveat in that it concerns me for the teams that can't do that. And I think the beauty of the Big 12 is its competitiveness. 2 years ago, none of us expected Arizona State to win the conference. We all thought they were propping up the conference. They won it. Last year we saw BYU, we saw Houston, we saw Cincinnati in moments. No one thought that either Houston or Cincinnati would be in the mix for in that regard, but they had the moments. You're going to lose that. You're going to have teams you can't compete with the no space, the money. The likes of Iowa State might struggle. The likes of Baylor will struggle, and I think that's going to stretch this conference into the haves and have-nots. That's why I'm a bit wary of the money. That being said, it is nice to show, a bit like ACC. The Big 12 is, the ACC currently has 3 or 4 teams with deep pockets, and the rest don't. That's where we are. The Big 12, they were a lot more closer, but that's going to get stretched. And there's good things and bad things with that, isn't there? Obviously, there's more chance of competing for a national championship for your conference, but there's also, for me, the best part of college football isn't the playoffs at the end of the year. It's the 14, 15 weeks building up to it. You know, they have to be entertaining. And I think that is the only concern I've got with the money and where Big 12 standing in the pecking order of college football right now.
Yeah. That's the problem. That's the thing as well with Texas Tech. We were talking about the money. Is like you've got oil barons able to pump whatever they want into it. Now, I am absolutely nobody to talk about oil money being pumped into a football team that you support and making it successful. In fact, I'm quite the proponent of it. Brought me a lot of happiness in my life. I'll switch my hats back now. 1 second. It's a lot of fun, but yeah, you're absolutely right there, saying in that you don't want to become one of those extremely top-heavy conferences that 2, 3 teams every year, and then you hope that one other team can just somehow string something together one year and put up some sort of a challenge. I think one of the
It does feel like a very like highly competitive conference though. Like when I was going through all the different teams, there was so many which I mean, obviously Texas Tech and BYU kind of stood out, but I think that there are 5 teams behind them I think are more than capable of pushing those top 2, maybe even, you know, taking that championship. I don't think they're necessarily that far behind them. And that's what I mean. I prefer that than to have like you say, one, you know, a dead set winner. You know they're going to win it and going to walk away with it, and you know, whereas this, I think, yes, there is that, but I also think there's a lot of competitive elements that could bring up to a few surprises throughout the year.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one of the things though that it does show, in particular things like with them being able to go get the likes of Keyshawn Henderson, with this money that's been able to thrown out, it shows the ambition, I think, of the as a whole. And one of the places that comes from has to be now, love him or hate him. I don't think anyone at this side of the pond right now can have anything bad to say about him. That comes from Brett Yarmack, who has a serious vision for how he sees the conference being a major player in college football going forward. And this is where, like, I think it's a really cool segue into how we do it in talking about that ambition, because there's no better place, I think, to start as we go into 2026. The number one with the monster deal that they have got that brings money into the conference, but also week 0. We've been alluded to it so many times already this week, today. Dublin, TCU, you're repping the Horned Frogs. On your jumper, for those listening on audio only, they have no idea what you're wearing.
Missing a trick if you're only listening.
But they have been thinking about it all the way through the podcast.
They have been.
No.
But it starts with TCU traveling out to play UNC, but then it also incorporates this little game that's happening at some stadium in London called Wembley Stadium with the Union Jack Classic. And as great as the guys over at the UJC are, they're fantastic individuals who really, really care about bringing college football to the UK. It's not possible without the love and support of Brett Yarmack, who sees these opportunities. Iowa State, Kansas State last year, TCU this year, Kansas and Arizona State this year, to put the Big 12 at the forefront of minds globally. My question, I think, to the room here is just what a statement do you think that this makes in terms of the aspirations of the conference, and how big a year is it to put on a show around the world?
Yeah, I think the reason, like Brett Yarmouth, the monster deal for starters, obviously that's $1.25 million per team for the season, essentially. Now that number is not big. So it's a big number in total for Monsters to pay, but when you look at Ohio State and Notre Dame getting $17 to $20 million per their sponsor, obviously there's a lot of questions raised. But you won't hear bad words from the Big 12 because they know that Brett Yarmark is exploring every single avenue he can possibly find to increase the exposure, the footprint, the kind of the allure of the Big 12 every way you can think of. He is relentless in this. That's why they call themselves the Challenger Brand Conference. They just won't stop at anything. And of course, the schools can still go out and get their own things. We saw Kansas went and got a little patch for a crypto brand that's bringing in about $6 or $7 million this year. So the outside things, and I think the patch looks pretty cool. I don't know if you saw it on the Arizona State jersey, the monster logo next to the Big 12 logo. I think it looked pretty cool. For considering what it takes, how little it is. It's an extra 1.25 million, So I think, what Brett Yormark is doing, and sometimes he might misstep, sometimes he might not get it quite right, but he's trying every little thing he can do to try and reduce that gap between the Big Ten and the SEC and himself. And also, he did this when he first got here, I don't know if you guys knew this about the media rights deal. It was actually the Pac-12's turn to negotiate media rights deals with ESPN. And ESPN have always been looking to try and reduce the amount they've been spending on college football for a long, long time. And they're pretty much the proponents of why we went from Power 5 to Power 4. But Brett Yormark read this. He saw it before it came, and he jumped the queue and agreed to a deal, which most people thought was a little bit less than he should have got for the Big 12, because he knew that they would be ruthless with the ESPN with the final team conference to do it, which is the Pac-12, and obviously the Pac-12 and the ESPN couldn't make a deal, and that was the end of the Pac-12. He saved the Big 12 by doing that. He then ended up pilfering 4 of the schools to reinforce the Big 12. Then he went out and went geographical and got UCF from the East Coast. He spread the conference right out. He went up as high as Cincinnati. He just thinks quickly. Whether or not, and yeah, he's a bit odd. I don't think anyone will mind me saying that. He's a lovely guy, but he's a bit unusual. He can be a bit cranky, as we saw in Big 12 media days with people who challenge him. And certainly a Texas Tech beat writer really didn't read the room quite well, did he, when he asked a question about tortillas? But no one can fault him for what he's doing. And you're right, it's a massive year for the Big 12 this year. Those 2 big games. I mean, we had a Big 12 double matchup in Dublin last year, which was awesome for me, obviously being a Big 12 fan. This year, I think TCU are going to wipe the floor with UNC North Carolina, and I think that's going to be great for the conference. The big win in week 0 to get the interconference. Because to me, if the Big 12, if the Big 10 and the SEC are going to keep harping on about how the competitiveness in the conference is better, they have to win their interconference games, and they don't. I track this every year. The Big 10 does well. But two years ago, the Big 12 had the best out of any team, any conference in Power 4 football. They need to. So this is where the Big 12 win. Baylor needs to beat Auburn in week 1. If Arizona beat Texas A&M in week 2, that's massive. If Kansas can beat Missouri in the border war, that's massive. These are huge moments. This is where Big 12 wins. This is how they do it. They keep chipping away at the edges, and of course, when it comes to the Union Jack Classic. That is, talk about ambition, that's highly ambitious, and I can only hope it goes really well for the guys, because like you say, they're a nice bunch of guys who just like Brett are striving at every opportunity they can possibly think of to make it a success, and hopefully loads of people will show up and have a great time.
We've talked about other commissioners being in it for themselves and in it just for their glory and whatever else. You can't say that about, he's in it for, raising up the game, making it available to Wolves. Yes, it's going to benefit the Big 12. But it's kind of across the board what he's doing, as you say, looking in every little corner, every nook and cranny, and looking at deals that nobody's ever thought of, or getting ahead of deals just in case. He's just doing all the right things, it seems, and making all the right noises to make that conference better than it was, more competitive, more visible, more sellable, I guess, in the long run to the big TV networks. And then in the end, that makes it more money, makes it more competitive, and it just keeps rolling now.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but every can of Monster will have the Big 12 logo on it. Every can.
That's enormous.
I mean,
that is enormous.
That doesn't seem like a big deal to the teams, but that is brand awareness. That's worldwide. Monster. I mean, God only knows how many millions of cans of Monster they sell every year, but people will be looking at it going, what's that?
Well,
we are still trying to convince Monster to do us a deal, aren't we?
Yeah.
Still talking to them, right?
DMs are still ongoing. That being said, it means I'm still sending DMs and they're still not replying.
Yeah. So, I was going to say they're a one-way street, those DMs.
Still I don't even think they've been seen yet.
But you start low at Fred Fletcher, go for Red Rooster or whatever it's called from B&M. There you go, that's the one.
That's the level we need to aim at. Stop.
Build yourself up. Yeah.
I was to say, what was it? I can't remember what the name of the Lidl brand is, but I've always been, yeah. I mean, we could,
You mean
but
King Kong?
yeah, that must be it.
Other energy brands are available, obviously, if you're listening.
Yeah.
But not in the Big 12.
Not from the Big 12.
But if you want your energy drink brand to be the only one that's available, then give us some cash and we'll make yours the only one we speak about. Anyway, would that be globally that the Big 12 logo appears on the cans? Because I will go out tomorrow and get a crate.
What colour would you get? Which team? I don't know how internationally it is. It's for sure in America. I mean, it would make sense to just make them. Well, I don't see what unless the productions are really problematic. It's just it's a graphic on a can.
It's not on my can.
Would they bring a bunch of them for the UJC though?
I think
that would be clever of them if they.
I would wonder because we got the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and the Pop-Tarts mascots came out last year for the Aer Lingus Classic because Kansas State, Iowa State were the last two teams to win it. What if Monster do make the way over to?
It wouldn't surprise me if they did something outside the stadium where they were giving away cans because they usually do. I mean, Red Bull have been doing that for years, haven't they? With
MotoGP,
just
the monster pickup trucks just drive around Silverstone giving away loads of cans. It would be silly not to have something similar, as you say.
I realise we're giving way more time than is probably necessary of our evening to energy drinks. And free marketing advice to the company of Monster, which we're gonna just stop with now. But it does, I think, just touching back on
to desperately need our help. Yeah.
The global brand that the Big 12 is trying to become. And last year when we came to the Aer Lingus Classic, Mrs. Fletch brought her friend, who is now a Kansas State fan. Don't particularly think she's paid as much attention as I would have hoped she would have been, and so impassioned and enthralled by the Aer Lingus Classic, but now make sure she keeps an eye on Kansas games. If she would have been left to her own devices to find a college football team, what's to bet it wouldn't have been Georgia or Alabama, or it'd probably been Michigan. I wouldn't have allowed anything else, but it would be one of the major brands in college football. Nope. Instead, she wears purple and goes and watches and make sure it's Kansas. There are people right now, as we all know, college football is really with the zone and all these different things that we're getting in the country now. College football is seeing another upturn and a huge uptake in how many people are watching it in this country. What's one of the first conferences that they're going to feel aligned with and feel like they know? Big 12. So if they're going out there buying merch for a Big 12 team that they support, so with Deion Sanders, a lot of people over this side of the pond also know, if you know football, you know Deion Sanders. The brand recognition, yes, but also global. That's driving then global merch sales, bringing in more money to each of the schools, which is going to drive up NIL, and they're tapping into the global market, which can only be a good thing for the schools going forward, can't it?
Well, the first ones to do it really properly embrace it. So that's an edge, isn't it? That's a win straight away. There's just no harm in doing it. I don't see a harm in doing it. What do they lose from losing one game that should have been in Lawrence this year that is now in London? Last year they lost a game that should have been in Manhattan. I think it was. I think they were the home team, K-State. Well, no one remembers. No, if it was bad, no one remembers. Instead, now you've got, and like you say, I would be surprised if someone, a complete newbie, who ends up going to watch the Unijack Classic in Wembley, doesn't buy in some way or another to Arizona State or Kansas or college football in general or the Big 12. If it's a great, exciting game, then there'll be them hooks, and that's a win. We've spoken to Lance Leipold a few times. He said the same thing, and he says that he hopes that people go to these games, go walk away a Kansas fan. And Kenny Dillingham said the same thing. He says he wants to see the forks up in every corner. They're not daft. They know what they're doing with this, and hopefully, and selling out Wembley might be difficult. It's 80,000. I don't think they're going to sell out Wembley, but it's still going to be a great atmosphere. They never sell out the Aviva, did they? Really? And that's still a great day. And the city's taken over. It really is. I think it's just ambition that we don't see from other conferences, or maybe they just don't. Maybe they don't think it's worthy. But what's the harm in trying?
Exactly. With that being said, though, as far as who are the teams that Obviously, we'd love to be able to say Kansas and Arizona State and TCU are the ones that we will probably be watching at the first weekend in December playing in the championship games. For you guys, who are your front runners for the conference? I think Texas Tech and BYU, but that kind of goes without saying. Um,
Yeah.
Given recent history and given their coaching situations and given their portal and the recruitment and all that sort of stuff, it's Texas Tech and BYU. Sam, I want to throw this one to you to start off with because you said there are a number of teams that you've got in this. There and thereabouts. Could be, could not be. Who've you got as one of those teams?
Well, we already kind of talked about it. It was Houston was my kind of third, so the team that I thought was going to be the closest to pushing them. Just again, based upon the fact that it was their return in recruitment was really good at 65%, 71% of that was on offense, which I think that if they can get that offense going, it is quite lethal. I mean, it was only 58 on defensive side, but again, I think they made some good movements in the portal. They made some good movements um, in recruitment, and I just think that they'll be tough to beat. And I think, like as I think Gary mentioned, their schedule is relatively easier in the sense they don't have to play BYU or Texas Tech, which it basically comes down to the fact that they need to beat the teams in and around them, and that's where I think it'll be. This is where I think the difficulty lies with a lot of these is that they've got to play each other, and that's where they're just going to beat each other up. But I do think Houston could be one of those teams. I think I had, where is it? If I can find my original listing. There was Utah, Houston, Arizona, and Kansas State were the four teams that I had that were going to be behind those, with TCU potentially in there. I didn't really do too much looking into TCU, but I think, I looked at, obviously they're obviously looking forward to seeing them in the Aer Lingus Classic, but I just think that there's so many teams that could end up just beating each other and it being sort of like a round robin of who beats who. I think that's where Texas Tech and BYU will kind of get the step away, but it wouldn't surprise me if someone like a Houston or that potentially sneaks in a championship game over one of the other two. I do think it's kind of those two for the taking, really.
Those two and any others. Yeah, I've got Utah as the similar, as you say, Sam. It's a bit of a coin toss between those two. You see the two top teams probably, maybe running away with it depending on schedules. But I got Utah in and around. It's a new season, a new, Morgan Scalley's there. I think it's pretty physical. Utah never easy. They're always pretty upfront and physical. It's always an arm wrestle. So I think they'll be there and thereabouts as well. But yeah, it's the best thing you can say about the Big 12 is that it's so balanced that it's literally every team has the opportunity to potentially beat everybody else. It's one of those conferences where it's not so top heavy and the two teams or three teams at the top clear head and shoulders above others and whatever else. You could easily see, as you say, Kansas State absolutely making a run for it because they're not playing one of the some of the bigger teams, or you could see Oklahoma State come out of nowhere, and these sorts of things could happen. And that's the joy of the Big 12 it is great for conference and it's great for watching. It's probably not great for the Big 12 going into playoffs because you might not get the best team because they've been beaten up for 8 weeks over the season and they've had really tough games. But the flip side is they're always battle hardened when they get to the playoffs. So it's pluses and minuses. But yeah, Utah, the Utes to me just hanging around there, maybe sneaky. But I do think Kansas State are going to be the dark horse because the schedule just seems to line up nicer for them.
Yeah, similar vibes for me. I think I'm less hot on Kansas State. Maybe it's just because I'm so in love with Kansas at the moment. Who knows? But I do. Obviously, TTU, BYU, they're the two teams to beat. Like you guys say, Houston, Utah in that next bracket. But for me, the two Arizona schools. The Wildcats bring back possibly the best quarterback in the conference in Noah Fita. They had excellent year 2 under Brent Brennan, who the jury was out on him after the first season. He came over from San Jose State. Jury was out for year one, but year two really turned it around. Really good team to watch. Beat Arizona State in the Governor's Cup. Arizona State themselves, they've just got one of the greatest head coaches in the conference for me. So I think that he's always in the position to win. He brought in a couple of 4-star receivers in the portal, which helps with whoever's under center. It looks like it's going to be Cutaboli. They're a dangerous team. They're a dangerous team to handle. I think, outside of that, it does get murky as it always does in the Big 12. Like you say, I think there's maybe that mid-tier who could Kansas State, TCU in there. I'd even throw Kansas in there just because they've got Andy Kotelnicki who's come back as offensive coordinator, and I think that's a huge get for Kansas. But aside from that, the rest, I mean, Oklahoma State in that dark horse area as well. But outside, some serious concerns for Iowa State, UCF, Colorado, and Baylor for me. They could be the ones in a bit of danger.
I wanted to ask that question, and I'm going to bring back Sam's question on head coaches potentially on the hot seat this year. Obviously, Dave Aranda had that we won't count 2020s really, so we're not going to say much on there. But they go win the conference in 2021. Since then, he's gone 6-7, 3-9, 8-5. Is Dave Aranda someone who could potentially be on a hot seat? And obviously, there's another name to be mentioned here in terms of hot seat names, as has been mentioned previously. Deion Sanders in there. But for Dave Aranda, there's been so many times it's felt the last couple of years a bit like I know the last couple of years we spoke really highly of Baylor going into the season. Just come on, we just need them to get it done. They just kind of need to get over the line, and then they just obviously 2023 they go 3-9. So it's not even that they didn't get over the line. I don't even think they got to the line.
But
then you go into this year and. You go into last year, they have a good year, not a great year. What's the ceiling for Baylor, and what is, in your opinion, I'm mainly throwing this out to, I've obviously thrown out to the room, but I'm going to throw this to Simon in particular. What's the bit where you say something like Dave Aranda, listen, you've been here, this is your 6th season, that we may need to go in another direction if it's going to be like this?
He's undoubtedly on the hot seat, Fletch. Undoubtedly on the hot seat. Dave Aranda comes in with this reputation and has a great defensive mind. And for the last 3-4 years, Baylor have been easy to score on. They're easy to run on, easy to throw against. They haven't really stood up to it. And like I alluded to earlier, going out and getting DJ Lagway, great get. But it does feel like it's his last throw of the dice to some extent. Going out and getting a quarterback who can hopefully keep them competitive. It's just not what you expect to see from a defensive-minded coach, really. I think if it works, it'll be great because, again, the Big 12 just they don't bother with defense usually. Maybe that's where Dave Aranda's come unstuck a little bit. But, yeah, he's undoubtedly on the hot seat. I would say he's probably more on the hot seat than Deion Sanders, purely because Deion Sanders can probably talk himself out of a sticky situation. But, yeah, those are well, potentially, yeah. The antics haven't been there last year with Deion, have they? He hasn't been commanding attention, and I think that's probably been a good move for him because you don't want to bring attention to the fact that they've not really done what they said they were going to do. They were absolutely great when they had Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders on the roster, but since then, the whole going out and getting big names, they've slowed that down. I think he's elevated Colorado a little bit before he got there, but I don't think the progression's still there. So I think he's probably a little bit more safe than Aranda. Aranda's the big name here because the other two teams I think are going to struggle. Have got new head coaches, and Jimmy Rogers and Scott Frost will be safe after 12 months. They're not going anywhere after 1 year. So they're the two names you really got to worry about. If you're looking for a third name, sadly, because he's built up expectations so much, it's probably Lance Leipold at Kansas. People forget before he got there that this team won 1 game a year. Absolute catastrophe hirings of Les Miles and Mark Mangino. Who's Charlie Fry? Not Charlie Fry, sorry, Charlie Weiss. Apologies. It was a mess at Kansas. They've always been a basketball school, and he's elevated it now where he got 9 wins and. Fans expect it. You go on social media and they think he's on a make or break year. He's not. I don't think if he gets 5 wins, he'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? Which they will. But the expectation, because the money's there in Kansas now, it's not quite TTU money, but it's getting there. And I think because of that, now they're starting to think, well, the money's here, so you should be doing better. Lance Leibold's a program builder in an era of college football that's slightly getting away from that. So that's his biggest danger. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if they get 7, 8 wins and go to a bowl game.
Because I
What's
have
got
them
starting to
getting
feel
7
like Cincinnati?
wins. I think they feel like one of those teams that might pick off a few of the teams above them just because of the nature of the way that they, a bit like an almost sort of underdoggy feel to them. But I just think that they'll take. I can see them taking wins off of teams like Kansas State. A big game that they could easily take.
They've got to win a rivalry game. Sam,
Yeah.
they've got to. He's not beaten Kansas State since he's been there. He's not beaten Missouri since he's been there. And I think there was the 16th year in a row that lost to Kansas State last year, and everyone thought it was going to be the year last year. I was in Lawrence for that game. It was fantastic atmosphere, but it just didn't happen. They were out of the races, and that was a big upset really for a lot of fans over there. So I think that if he wins one of them games, then he probably go down in history in Kansas, compared to all the other coaches that came before him.
Yeah.
Conte, what do you think about the Cincinnati head coach, though? Do you think he's second on the list? Do you think, with flitting around and then tailing off so much last year?
No, I don't think he'll probably be safe. I think they did a lot better than anyone thought last year, Cincinnati, to be honest. They're not competitive money-wise. I mean, so it's a bit trickier, and they do feel a little bit like West Virginia sometimes and UCF sometimes, that they're not quite proper Big 12 school. They're a little bit away from it all. They're not, they're in a different Midwest team, I suppose, which the Big 12 obviously does flirt with. But I don't think that I think he's bought enough cash in the bank last year to survive a year like this. I mean, obviously, if he only wins 2 games, it's a different matter, isn't it? But if he gets remotely,
anybody, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he's as in danger as maybe he would have been if it had happened.
My struggle with it is more their schedule. I think, apart from the 3 opening games where they play winnable games, Kansas State, Arizona, Texas, I just think there's a lot of teams that they've got to try and go and beat that, I'm not saying that it'll necessarily mean that he'll lose his job, but I struggle to see where they'll get more than 4 wins. That's my concern.
Yeah. I did have another thing I can't remember what I wanted to bring up now. It doesn't matter. I agree. I like the point still made about at least some of the head coaches. I still think for me, Dave Aranda's the probably number 1 head coach with the toastiest buns, we'll call him. But I actually find that I really enjoy. Not that I didn't really think about it like that, but I do still continuously find the point about Deion Sanders potentially being able to talk himself out of a potentially disastrous year. I still think they at least need to improve on last year's record. You've got to. There's no way that they can continue like that. But he's got at least 2 seasons, I reckon, because I think you remember, if apart from the 2020 season, where again, let's not really make any claim on anything to do with that year. 2016 was the last year they even got to a bowl game. And he had them with a 9-win season. And that 9-win season was a loss in a bowl game. So that's a 9-win regular season that they had. This isn't, you see, we talk about some of these programs, you're talking like, these are programs that have generally stood by head coaches for at least a few years without making bowl games, without making whatever. So it is a program, I think. And while Deion Sanders is there, I think there's a level of eyes that are on the program. There is a level of the people that they bring into the building, the people that are watching, the people that are talking about the program. I think if you're an AD, if you're looking at the branding of the university, I'm thinking Deion Sanders makes you money as well.
I think that may be his saving grace, is the fact that he is a big pull in his own right. But from an on-field perspective, I mean, how and again, it kind of goes out to everyone, but maybe aside, but how many wins do you actually realistically see them getting this year?
Well, I mean, I don't like playing this game really, Sam, because it's the Big 12 and they'll probably beat Arizona State and they just sort of line me up. But yeah, it's I don't know, maybe I mean, I don't think I think they'll just fall short of a bowl game. They'll get some nice out of conference wins, obviously. I've not seen the schedule, so I don't know. But with all the changes at Oklahoma State, they could beat Oklahoma State, even though we're calling Oklahoma State dark horses, aren't we? So there's too many variables to say. I honestly, unless he wins only 2 games, I think he's fine.
With that being said, I'm conscious of the time. I think we've covered a lot of subjects in a fair bit of depth. Obviously, if there's anything that you at home are wondering, think we've not mentioned, want to talk about, please do. I forgot to say this at the start of the episode. Just the one thing I should remember to say at the start of the episode. Please find all the links and descriptions for everything related to this episode in the links in the description of this episode. Whether it's to follow the AAW network, whether it's to follow site, follow the touchdown. As again was mentioned earlier in this episode, the UK and Ireland College Football Media pre-season poll will be getting sent out to all the voters this week. Means it'll be getting compiled over the next few days and then released. And the first place you will find that is the touchdown. So make sure you are following the touchdown to see that first. Before we go, oh yeah, and join our free to join Discord server. That's the one I keep.
That's the one
I've made a lot of changes to it over the last few days. Obviously, throughout the season, we do that thing where if we can find a couple of people on a Saturday, we join a voice channel. I have the college football on. Did it a few times last year. We got that great game where the Florida State Virginia game last year. That was really fun. That was on a Friday night though. Where we watched it together in Discord, and just sometimes little things like that are just really fun. So please do if that's your thing, and please do come and join us. You don't have to obviously take part in watch parties to join the Discord. That's not a requirement. Before we go, as is customary, we make everybody go around and do a prediction of who they think is going to win the conference. Poor Ollie Hodgkinson had to guess 6 different conferences. All the weight was on his shoulder.
Yeah, he really struggled as well. He hated doing that, didn't
he? Yeah. Did he do all the group of 6, did he?
Yeah, we did 2. We split the group of 6 into 2. And we shouted out Ollie, and he was just like, I'll do both of them. Why not? I'll come and do both of them with you. We start with a guest. Si, who do you think wins the Big 12 in December?
BYU.
BYU. We'll go.
I think BYU bring the most talent back. It's that simple.
Gary?
BYU.
Nick says Texas Tech. Sam?
Texas Tech.
Ooh. Longhorns calling
Texas Tech. Big baby Texas Techs.
Adam has submitted his. He went for BYU, and I have gone with Texas Tech myself. So that is a split down the middle, 3-3, BYU and Texas Tech. Shame, because last week everyone said Miami.
Yeah, no wonder.
Shock.
No, but I'm saying that's the first time in the 3 years of doing this with this will be in the next 2 weeks. This will be 30 conferences. 30 conference previews done. That'd be the only one where everyone's agreed.
I think there was one where we had everyone said the same thing, and then I just decided for the sake of it.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the ACC one is that I can't remember the last time Miami won the conference. They obviously didn't win it last year. They've dropped the ball a couple of times. They did that fumble against Georgia Tech the year before. They did it again. I can't remember. It was against Wake Forest the year before that. They make a meal of winning that conference every year, but they are undoubtedly the best team in it.
Head and shoulders above it, but yeah, it's the ACC. Who knows, another one of those stupid, tie-break scenarios. If they, as you say, Miami just end up fumbling it because they get complacent.
Do you really want to know?
I guess 10 years ago.
It was the big year, wasn't it? It was was it the last time they had like that star-studded team?
So the first time they had an ACC championship game, according to this, 2005. Miami's record since then is 0-1
in the championship. Yeah, that's how often they've got to the championship.
0-1.
2003 was our last one. That's crazy.
2017.
They got to the game.
2003
was the time they got to the
was the year
championship
they
game.
had literally like an NFL team, though, wasn't
Yeah,
And
before that they were in the Big East, weren't they?
got
Whatever it was called.
absolutely, they got bent over in ways that some people would pay the privilege for by Clemson, 38-3 in 2017.
There you go. Give me
And
Georgia
that's
Tech instead.
safe bet with the Golden Jackets.
so. Unsurprisingly, Clemson have the best record and the most wins.
We're
In
talking about ACC. Just move on. We're talking about Big 12. Come on.
listen, I was about to say so. Do you know what? I won't say the thing I was gonna say next. It was really
No
nice
need
and
to.
you'd like Gary.
Yeah, it's fine.
Right.
We did the ACC. We've lambasted enough on FSU, and I was the main component.
We
of that,
can
so-
never lambast enough on FSU, Gary.
No, this is
As
true.
long
This
as
is
you
true.
are
So
on
it's an
this,
endless supply. You have an endless supply, and they're the team that just keep on giving.
Yeah.
To the coach.
With that being said, I want to say a massive, massive thank you to our guests. I thank you for coming on again and giving us
You're
your time.
welcome. Absolutely welcome. I really enjoy it. Anytime anyone's talking about Big 12 football, I'll be there.
No worries. We were. I'll ask you after. I don't want to put you on it on record. But huge thank you. What's going on with the touchdown over the next few weeks?
Oh, well, obviously we're building up with the conference previews and college football. I'm sure we'll do the same thing in the NFL as well. Obviously, we'll start covering training camps and preseason NFL side of things. College football, well, it's almost here, isn't it? So you'll get a lot of build up for the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin.
24 days.
I'll
24 days.
I'll be there. I'll be doing most of the work on that, I imagine, because I get the privilege of going. And yeah, I think it's just full steam ahead now as the season gets going. It's been a nice break, but I'm ready to go and get some more football back in my life.
Lovely. So
Wasn't
you
this
went
weekend the last
22 days
weekend?
until college football actually returns.
Wasn't this weekend the last weekend that or the first weekend? There's something that it was like there's now football every weekend until February.
Well,
There's
no,
a Hall
because
of Fame
if
game or something.
it depends if you are being one of those abolitionists of football. Britball has been going on since then. The CFL has been going on since. The UFL has been going on. Don't be one of those football abolitionists, Gary. Football never left.
You got told, didn't you, Gary?
Football never left.
It's also somebody on social media got told that as well. I saw that post. Yeah.
It's like watching Josh Pate keep counting down the weeks till college football, and without seeing who's quoted the tweet, I just know it's Ollie saying stop abolishing week, like with the week 0 abolition. Having said that, huge thank you again. One more huge thank you to Ty for joining us. We'll be back next week for our Big Ten preview with Rory Joe Daniels, also of the touchdown, to cover the Big Ten. Hopefully Adam is back as well. See you next week.
Take it easy. Cheers, Si.